Can't get enough sports shorts? Tune into Sports Shorts TV on Cox HD Channel 1013 Mondays at 8, Tuesdays at 9, and ETEL Channel 4. That's 52 weeks a year to get educated on sports by the best. Joel Davis and Ronnie Rance.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of Sports Shorts presented by LeBear's Casino. Ronnie Rance, Mike Scarborough of TigerBait.com going to be joining me, and hope everybody's had a great week out there. Mike, thanks for coming, man. Like the jacket, by the way.
I know, man.
Little retro look.
Yeah, pulled that one out of the closet. Deep.
A lot of stuff to get to in the world of sports. Here locally, a couple of big names. People are... I just passed a couple high, tall buildings on the way here, and there were like two people on the ledge. So hopefully they've backed off the ledge. But Ja'Marr Chase, who is the best receiver in the country in most people's opinion, he was going to make life easy for Miles Brennan this year. He was going to help, be the leader of that offense. He opts out, not going to play in the 10 regular season games or whatever bowl games or postseasons there is to come. No Ja'Marr Chase. How big of a story is this?
I think it's a big story, but at the same time, even though you're losing arguably, and I don't even know if it's even an argument that he's the best player in the country returning, look at the receivers that are behind him. I mean, Terrace Marshall, Racey McMath, hearing great things about true freshman Coy Moore, Kayshon Boutte. They've got some players there, but still, I mean, he causes so many problems, and to lose him this late, I'm just, we've all been grasping all weekend. The rumors started to hit Friday evening late. And of course, at the time I got that, it wasn't just him, it was Shelvin as well, that he was thinking about it. I'm told in the last couple of days they've gotten him, talked, back in or had that notion nixed for now. But no, it's a big loss. But it's, what were the factors? You keep hearing, agents gonna, fronting money between now and the draft, the COVID concerns. Of course, I'm told that he's already had COVID. So are there any documented cases of someone having it twice?
Right.
I'm unaware of that.
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah. So, but you can say that COVID is an excuse because of what you've seen happen with the offensive line group, what that'll do to the other positions throughout the year. Is it a lost year? What are you playing for? What will the playoffs be like? And so if you were someone who was looking at LSU's schedule and going 9-1 or 8-2, are you adjusting now?
People want to put it on one reason and one thing why Ja'Marr Chase isn't going to play this year, and I don't know that you can. I think it's definitely a combination of a number of things. If this wasn't a COVID year where, if I'm Ja'Marr Chase, I'm thinking, okay, is my quarterback going to be the same quarterback every year? It's a new quarterback. Is he going to get sick? And all of a sudden now I got to play with a true freshman. There's all these, what is my offensive line going to, 2 or 3 guys going to be out one week and the quarterback can't throw the ball. So there's the concern that by playing, you could be taking a step back, because there's no doubt his production's not going to be what it was last year with Joe Burrow at quarterback. I mean, it's natural. He's going to fall off in production. But then is the line going to be good enough? Is the quarterback going to be good enough? Are we even going to play 10 games? Are we, when we play Alabama, are we going to be at full strength? Is there an SEC championship really going to happen? Is there going to be a national championship? There's so many unknowns that I think that's the reason why people were able to get in his ear, whether it was agents, family, a combination, and say, you know what? And I thought Jacques Doucet had a great quote from WAB when he said, hey, if you had a lottery ticket, wouldn't you wait 8 months to cash it? And he knows he's going to be a first-round pick. Now, whether he's 2nd overall, 12th overall, who the heck knows? He knows he's going to be a first-round pick if he doesn't play. As much as you want to play, there's no fans. I think I'm just going to sit out. Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of that.
How many receivers were taken in the first round this past draft?
4, maybe 5. I know there's a bunch.
Yeah, it was a high number.
Right.
And he's going to be the top of the list.
Right.
Regardless of if he plays.
First or second.
Yeah, I was watching Mike Florio and Chris Sims this morning and a couple other clips, and they were talking about, one Tannenbaum said, I'd like to see a little bit more out. But it's like, no, you don't. Are the Ohio State Buckeye players, are they going to be hurt? The Pac-12's not playing.
Right.
Is the Big Ten going to get uncorked and all this wrangling behind
half
the scenes.
teams at least are not going to play.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the talent there that aren't going to play. So how's that any different? So, but then I go back to it. It's like in this age and everything that we're dealing with right now, and we're talking about the name and likeness. I think a guy like Derek Stingley. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who's going to play another year? He's got to do it for another 2 years. He could play in the NFL right now. I don't know how that doesn't get pushed in a court case.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, we can be selfish, whether you're an LSU fan or LSU media. We want to see these guys play for LSU. But at the same time, if you're a capitalist, you're like, if these guys have the ability to make millions right now and make a strong living, why are they being prevented from doing it?
Well, first off, the NCAA is not the ones preventing them. It's the NFL.
Right.
It's the NFL and the NFL Players Union, and they've in their collective bargaining agreement, it says players cannot, turn pro until a certain period of time. So people have to make sure they get it right. It's not an LSU thing. It's not an NCAA thing. It is the leagues, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, that they set the rules when players can go pro. But and I think these are extreme cases, even though players are misguided a lot of times. We're talking about the best of the best. When you say Stingley and Chase, these are guys that we know, everybody knows, first-round pick, whether he sits out a year or not, they're going to be a first-round pick. Some of these other players that decide to sit out or forego their year, they're foregoing to be a fourth-round pick or a fifth-round pick.
You're saying
that's silly.
And you're right, it is a situation. But why couldn't the NFL Players Union say, in a case like a Stingley, we'll convene a board once a year to evaluate a guy.
Special circumstances.
Then there's a mulligan for a guy like that. Could be a one and done.
Right.
But it's, I was talking to another media guy yesterday, and he's like, well, yeah, but it's the NFL players that would vote against that because that costs them a job. You start bringing in guys like that sooner, and they start getting younger and younger. But it's like, but with everything we're going on now, are we going to start seeing those things changes? Whether it's the 3 years in baseball, the one and done in basketball, some hybrid of that. Particularly if the Power Five breaks off from the NCAA, I think we're going to see so many changes here. We're not even going to recognize what the NCAA looks like in 3 or 4 years.
Well, the SEC came out with their fall schedule last week for other sports outside of football. We're talking about cross country and volleyball and tennis, and it's like a condensed, 6 games, 8 games. So if they can do those types of things in a COVID year, where they've already said, hey, if you play fall sports, you have another year of eligibility, whether you play or not. Everybody's going to have another year of eligibility. That's a game changer. And I agree with you. The rules that are in place now are going to have to change. A McNeese State University that's decimated by Hurricane Laura and, that still doesn't have power and has massive destruction to their campus, they were at the minimum. They had 13 or 14 Division I sports, whatever I think it's 14 is the number. You had to have 14 Division I sports in order to be considered Division I. And they had the absolute minimum. How in the heck can McNeese, who knows when they open back up, how are they going to be able to have the minimum in the wake of COVID, in the wake of a hurricane? They're going to make exceptions for that school. If you can make exceptions for them, you can make exceptions for everybody. And I agree with you that college sports is going to change drastically over the next 5 years, whether it's likeness, whether it's the number of teams that play Division I. LSU might have 8 teams in Division I. These sports are Division III. I just think there's going to be massive overhaul in the coming years.
And then you combine with Title IX will do to schools like McNeese. And it's almost like the NCAA. I've had it in my mind, like how much money do they have socked away in a bank account somewhere that they're just sitting on. It's almost like.
Well, we're about to find out. If they don't play basketball this year, it's going to cost them $400 million or whatever by not playing, and that'll be 2 years in a row. The NCAA would have lost that revenue. I can't imagine they have more than that.
But those schools, the McNeese's of the world, and Nichols, and UL Lafayette's, et cetera, they're still getting. I don't remember the amounts, but it was $7 or $8 million annually from the state. And they'll play with the wording of it and how it looks, but they're all getting taxpayer money. But in situations like this, they're going to need more than that.
Right.
That's not near enough.
Right.
And it's almost like the NCAA owes these schools to bail them out. And they've got to have the money that they're just sitting on somewhere.
I think, and we kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent. Let me bring it back to the Jamar Chase, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. Jamar Chase is just one example of the craziness that's been 2020. It started out so positive with Joe Burrow winning a national championship. We thought it was going to be a magical year. And then, of course, since the middle of March to now, it has been the upside-down world. The question becomes, will it ever right itself? Will we ever get back to normal? Will college sports ever get back to normal? I don't know, Mike. I mean, like the idea that, come January things will be normal, or come March things will.
No.
I mean, it's a wait and see.
No, look at LSU scholarship numbers right now, and it's not done. There's kids that were, there are rumors out there, LSU's in the 72, I think 73 right now. They don't even have, not anywhere close to a full 85. And then
you mentioned Shelvin, by the way, guys. We're still about a month away from the first football game happening. I mean, there could be some other shocks or things happen between now and September 26th.
And COVID and COVID set some guys back academically.
Right.
What's going to be their situation at midterm academically. I know they've had to really stay on some guys and get work done. So it's. I think you're several years away from bouncing back and trying to have any normalcy once you get through COVID, because you're giving all these guys to opt out another year. I mean, is the NCAA going to say this is how many scholarships you can carry? Are they going to give us? Have they given a number? Is it going to be 105? I mean, what is it going to be? School like LSU, if you can sign 25 plus the one that they didn't use last year, you're still not even anywhere close to the numbers you need, because you got wrecked so bad by the draft and guys, just normal attrition.
I do think that the NCAA is going to have to be a lot more flexible when it comes to the rules of what qualifies for Division I, scholarships, all that sort of thing. You're not going to be able in this COVID time be able to say, especially if there's no basketball, then whew. I mean, you're talking, if there's no NCAA tournament, let me clarify. It's all about the NCAA tournament. If there's no NCAA tournament and that TV revenue if that doesn't come in, then there may not be the words NCAA. It may be called something else.
And look,
it may be a new division.
What we've seen in football, does that happen in basketball? And as all of a sudden you've got multiple leagues
that say we're not going to play.
And then you've got the same three that are saying they're playing football, saying, okay, well, if the NCAA is controlling the NCAA tournament, then all of a sudden they're going to the NIT and saying you guys are the show this year,
right?
And these are the leagues that are going to feed you. I mean, because does the election change any of that?
Well, I know a lot of people think the election's going to change any of that, but I would say this: I'm not of that camp. Okay, whether Trump wins or Biden wins, I just can't imagine that. The next month everything's fine. Go back to work. I know there's that belief, but I'm not of that camp. There's plenty of examples of Republican.
You're not of the Max Kellerman camp,
right? There's plenty of Republicans, governors that are shutting down their state. It's not just straight, Democrat, Republican, as far as, cities being shut down or being open. I mean, so I kind of think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but Trump's president of the United States and things are being shut down. So, but hopefully things are going to change. But I'll tell you, I do think the NCAA is going to change. And the big thing I think will happen, because it's going to have to, is, hey, if you have a football team and a men's and women's basketball team, you're Division I. You want to play Division I, you're Division I. That whole rule where you have to have 14 teams playing Division I sports to be considered in that division, I think that's going to go by the wayside. It has to go by the wayside. There's too many teams that can't fill out 14 scholarship, Division I conference squads and all the different sports because of Title IX and everything else. Because of that, I think that's going to be the biggest rule change that we're going to see in the next maybe year to make some exceptions.
And when people just think, it's just, you can carry more than your normal scholarship for a year. Well, that still has to be paid for.
Who's got to pay for that, right?
Yeah.
The teams pay for that. I mean, that's what people don't realize. LSU baseball, if they have to, pay for more than 11.7 scholarships because of the rule where seniors can come back, if it's 2 more scholarships, that they got to pay for that. And right now, nobody's got money.
Yeah, people don't realize that each sport writes a check for the tuition,
right,
and everything else.
He's Mike Scarborough. You can follow him, of course, on TigerBait.com. Been on there for many, many years. Recruiting is in full swing for LSU football. We'll talk about recruiting, but when we come back, we'll talk about the big news coming out of Jacksonville. Leonard Fournette looking for a job. Do you have one out there? He might be. If he clears waivers, if he doesn't get the $4.2 million, if he clears waivers, he's looking for a job. He's a free agent. We'll talk about Leonard Fournette and a whole lot more. Don't go anywhere. Sports Shorts presented by the good folks over at LeBear's Casino, now open 24/7, 365.
If you're an avid sports fan, then you need to check out the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, located in historic downtown Natchitoches, next to the Chateau St. Denis Hotel and the Natchitoches Convention Center. The Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame is where the rich history of Louisiana sports is told through the pictures, artifacts, and by the legends themselves in video archives. Come to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame and Northwest Louisiana History Museum and visit a world-renowned architectural marvel. For more information and to purchase tickets to the annual Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame events, visit lasportshall.com/purchase.
Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Shorts presented by LeBear's Casino. Ronnie Rance here with you, with Mike Scarborough of TigerBait.com. Mike, when you started TigerBait.com, how many years ago?
We go back to 97.
1997. That was the AOL dial-up days, right?
Yes. Yeah, my first website was actually an AOL member page.
There you go. Took a minute for it to come on. I can remember being like about 1998 or so, being in my little home office trying to get on the internet. It was a hit or miss sometimes, but been at it a very long time. That was in the Bring Back the Magic DiNardo days, and then here we are now. What's the biggest change in your business with following recruiting from the time you began it over 20 years ago to now?
I think it went to a whole other gear when Twitter came about. I think that's probably the biggest factor. Each kid can be a detriment to them, but I think the way that coaches now can communicate is so much easier. I think you've got Huddle out there. It's back in the day, it was very difficult. There were some kids in pockets of the state where, it could be an unknown for a long time. Now it's virtually impossible for a prospect to be an unknown.
Largely because of Huddle, right?
Huddle, Twitter, kids
before that.
Kids putting their film up, being able to communicate. It's nonstop all day long. I get coaches at schools at me and putting film up of their kids, and that goes for every guy who covers recruiting. They get that all day long, and it's so that I think that's the biggest part of it. It's almost impossible for like a guy like a Brandon LaFell to come out of nowhere in this day and age because of Twitter and Huddle and so forth.
When you have followed players over the years and you're trying to rank them and give them stars and figure out your lists and all that sort of thing, obviously you get the highlight tapes. Do you ever just get the raw game tapes? I mean, because everybody can look good in a highlight tape, obviously some more than others. But, if I've got, 75 snaps in a game and I'm giving you the 3 best ones and there's 72 others, how do you handle that?
Well, and that's one of the things that we've always done at Tiger Bait. I mean, I'm out every Thursday, Friday night, and then I hire other guys to work with me to film, and we put the bad clips up along with the good. I mean, we're not going to put a whole game up, but we will focus on a player at a game when we go out. And I tell my guys, I don't want 50 yards in the frame. I want, 10 yards behind each guy. And but yeah, and that's some of the huddle tape looks like. I mean, I've seen guys, like I was at Covington. I was just not throwing them under the bus, but they've got a track around that stadium. You know how high that stadium is, and they're shooting with an iPhone from up on top of the press box. Well, that film's not going to be any good by the time it makes its way to huddle.
Right.
So that's why we go out and do what we do. But I know college coaches, when they ask the school for actual game film, they don't want highlight tapes.
Right.
And before huddle, that's what guys like me would do all December. We would be begging high school coaches to send us DVDs in the mail, and then we would make it and upload it to the server and put it on a kid's football recruiting profile. So yeah, no, but they want full game.
So Twitter is the biggest game changer in your business, because now I don't know, when did Twitter really, about 10 years ago, when Twitter really...
about 2008, 2009.
Yeah, when Twitter really kind of took off. So now, because players have their own accounts, they can kind of be their own PR. They can post their own videos, pictures, their own statements. People can ask them questions, contact with them. It kind of cuts out some of the other people.
Yeah, I'd like for it to go away.
I bet you do. Tell folks about, by the way, how they can get involved with TigerBait.com, and what all do you guys do special? And if they have a membership, what are they going to find?
That's it, TigerBait.com. We always offer a $1 1-week trial period. I think we have like a 96.5% retention rate right now. So people are loving the site, and that's it. Just go to TigerBait.com. I'm at Scarborough Mike on Twitter, and our Facebook page is always loaded with free content. Just type in TigerBait.com in the search box.
And the great thing is you guys cover more than just LSU football. You cover other sports, right? Big
basketball,
articles,
baseball.
Yeah, do a great job with all the other stuff. Leonard Fournette, out of a job. It's amazing to think, here we are, 2020, and if he doesn't get claimed on waivers, if Fournette gets
he's a
claimed
free
on
agent.
Okay, he made it off. Okay.
Yeah, well, he because I don't know what the rules on that, but he can go wherever he wants.
Okay.
It was automatic.
It was so 4.2. So Leonard Fournette's a free agent. He only played 3 years in the league. He had his best year last year, over 1,600 all-purpose yards, had over 1,100 yards rushing, had over 500 yards receiving. It's a very good year. But that just goes to show you what a pain in the ass he must be in the locker room, huh? Where a running back who caught 75 passes, rushed for over 1,100 yards, you already have him under contract, and you let him go? A first-round pick, fourth overall in the draft?
I was watching some of the talking heads this morning, and they, maybe I'm missing something, but I think, has there been any off the field with Fournette in the last year? I think he's kind of kept his nose clean.
Yeah, I mean, other than a couple of personal comments about, some tweets, like, for example, when Cam Newton came available, hey, we need to go get Cam Newton. And I'm sure as a coach and a GM, you don't want to hear your running back saying we should, telling people publicly who they should go sign when you got a couple quarterbacks on your roster.
And then the other knock on him, I'm always on this show in Jacksonville, and they'll always bring him up. And they've had times where they've been concerned about his weight.
Right. Wasn't in the best shape. Really, that was 2018. 2019, he's fine.
But the biggest thing that they're saying this morning is that he just doesn't fit the offense there. And those guys think that he won't last on the free agent wire long. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Chicago, Seattle. I mean, those are some of the teams that they were mentioning where he would be a great fit in their offense. And like you said, he had a great season last season. And he's been trying to get out of it, but that also shows you the value of running backs.
Right. They just don't value them.
Yeah, I mean, Clyde was the last pick taken in the draft. You just
in the first round.
I mean, look what the Saints have done with late round running backs, and how you just don't have to take those unless they're an Adrian Peterson type of guy. I mean,
but Leonard Fournette was supposed to be an Adrian Peterson type of guy
Right.
coming out of college. I mean, it's amazing to think that here we are, and Leonard Fournette. I don't want to use the word bust. Anytime you have over 1,600 all-purpose yards, you're not a bust. First 2 years were disappointing. Third year, it was good. I mean, he had a good year. You rushed for over 1,100 yards. He averaged over 4 yards a carry. He had 75 catches. He had a really good year
On a
last
bad
year.
team.
Yeah, had a really good year. So, 2 not so good years, partly because of injury and other things. And then the third year was good. But Leonard Fournette, let's just say, is a question mark for the rest of his career. Is this going to be the beginning of the end, or is this going to be just breathe life into a new situation, go to a better organization, a better team, and all of a sudden he takes off? That's what I believe is going to happen.
he could actually be he's in the catbird seat because he can pick the right situation where, depending on what offers he gets,
Right.
who actually, says we want you.
But the thing is that, he was the 4th pick overall. We were having conversations about, is he the greatest LSU running back, talent-wise, when he came out. You had Darius Geis just, the year after him come out, the Redskins, and all of a sudden now Darius Geis is out of football looking like he's not going to be back in football. He's just trying to stay out of jail. Leonard Fournette's already been let go by the team that drafted him after first over.
So now it's all on Clyde.
Now it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It reminds me of the 2006 LSU basketball team that went to the Final Four when Garrett Temple is the last man standing. And we never thought that Garrett Temple would be the last man standing on that team that had Big Baby and all these other great players, that were super athletic. And it's like, wait a minute, here we are, 2020, and it's Garrett Temple is the best player from that team that had the best NBA career.
Yep.
That's kind of funny, and it's looking like you could have a similar scenario where out of the 3 running backs, Geis and Fournette, Clyde Edwards-Helaire might be the one that has the best pro career.
I love the Clyde Edwards-Helaire stories. To me, is the best because, we go to combines and these camps in the spring, and how you doing, Clyde? And he was just the 3-star guy. Didn't impress you with his 40, didn't impress you with
Size.
He just he wasn't like when you went to camp and you saw Fournette, and Mixon, and those guys when we went to the big camps and then look at the year he had last year and but the year before that was one of the positions going to the offseason and Brissett had a good year, a solid year for LSU.
Over 1,000 yards rushing.
But it just shows you that running backs in these new offenses, you can get it done. I mean, this time last year we were saying how much longer before Chris Curry transfers out. Now look at him. He's the number 1 running back, and look how he ended last year, and he's a toast of town, and is he going to be the guy that gets 18? It's going to be interesting to see.
When your dealings with Leonard Fournette, I mean, he was a guy who was a star as a freshman in high school, right? I mean, he was the best player in the state at every age group. He was freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in high school. He was the best player. We knew about him. He was a guy LSU needed to get. He was kind of like Alex Bregman in that he had his marketing, Booger Nation, and he had his camp around him. I mean, even in high school, just like Alex Bregman had his brand in high school. Was he difficult to deal with?
No.
You had a good relationship with him?
And he had every opportunity to become a bad seed. And I've seen multiple of those guys become bad seeds, particularly the ones that are 9th, 10th graders, get the early offers. I've seen them go from, hey, Mr. Mike, getting their profile up on the website, and it's the greatest day in the world. They get a profile on a national network or Tiger Bait or wherever. And then by the time they're a senior, they don't want to talk to you because, one, they're burned out because there's 200 guys calling them every night to do a recruiting interview, plus coaches. Or they're mad because they're not a 5-star and they're only a national 100 guy, and they blame you. And it's like, boy, I've seen it all.
But Leonard was not that way.
No. And there were times where he had a temper, but he's a young guy. A guy that had that kind of spotlight on him in the 9th grade 14 years old, he really could have been a bad seed.
Is Leonard Fournette, is there a story that has him in New Orleans? This would obviously Saints fans, New Orleans fans would love to see Fournette there. You could get him at a good value. He obviously shows pass catching skills. Had 75 catches, so he can catch the football. It's a hometown guy. Yes, he maybe is. His mouth has maybe written some checks as couldn't cash over the years, but I'm sure he's learned from that. He definitely would learn from that from Drew Brees or Sean Payton, that veteran locker room and all that. Could there be a scenario where New Orleans is a fit?
I wonder if they would do their research and say, is it good? What him in this element with all his friends, and is that good for him, or is
that a real concern, you think, for teams that when they have a hometown guy?
People wonder, is that why they don't take LSU players in any real numbers? But I don't think so. Look, when you've got that kind of money, you can make your own trouble. So, I think for Leonard, it's just going to be, where does he fit? He wants to go to a place that likes to run the football and still, has some innovative offense, but they also want to have a power running game.
Right. So Leonard Fournette would fit into the New Orleans Saints in 2021 when Taysom Hill's a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
That would be a better fit to pound the rock with those guys. He's Mike Scarborough of TigerBait.com. Give him a look. Don't forget, $1 get you a week on TigerBait.com. Get you a little look in. Also, big day on September 1st, Tuesday, September 1st for the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. We're running a week-long Gridiron Kickoff online auction. It's going to go from September 1st through September 7th. It'll end at 8 p.m. on September 7th. A lot of great items like game-used LSU football, Joe Burrow helmet signed by Joe Burrow, all the way to we got a 3-person redfish fishing trip with Nicky Savoy. He's a captain. He's a boat captain, former LSU tight end.
How did that building fare?
Did okay. Still
no
power issues in Natchitoches, but as far as the Hall of Fame building is concerned,
Natchitoches got hit hard.
Yeah, Alexandria, Natchitoches, that the whole cut from Lake Charles, Alexandria, Natchitoches, all the way to Ruston, even at some real issues. But the folks up in Natchitoches are doing okay. The museum is going to be fine. But great fundraiser going on September 1st to September 7th. Lots of great auction items. Go to lasportshall.com. That's lasportshall.com and take a look. Get involved in our auction. We'd appreciate the support. We'll be back with more Sports Shorts presented by LeBears right after this.
If you're an avid sports fan, then you need to check out the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, located in historic downtown Natchitoches, next to the Chateau Saint Denis Hotel and the Natchitoches Convention Center. The Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame is where the rich history of Louisiana sports is told through the pictures, artifacts, and by the legends themselves in video archives. Come to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame and Northwest Louisiana History Museum and visit a world-renowned architectural marvel. For more information and to purchase tickets to the annual Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame events, visit lasportshall.com/purchase. Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Shorts, presented by LeBears Casino. Ronnie Rance alongside Mike Scarborough of TigerBait.com. And recruiting has not slowed down. The world has. COVID, hurricanes,
has not slowed down LSU recruiting. In the midst of all that, they get a couple of commitments this past week.
Yeah, got the cornerback, Nate Wiggins from Atlanta, Westlake, Friday night late, about 10 o'clock. About the same time I got the word of the stuff possibly going down with Jamar Chase. And then Jalen Sheed from Olive Branch, Mississippi, tied in on Sunday. So you're talking about a high 4-star corner. And Wiggins, and Sheed is a 3-star, but he's a basketball player who's only played 1 year of football. He was talked into going out for the football team last year, went to the Alabama camp last summer, and Nick Saban went nuts on him and offered him a scholarship, but he chose LSU over Alabama and Ole Miss on Sunday. So I think he's a kid, because of the type of offense they run, I don't know that he can get a chance to get a higher rating, but I don't think it matters. When you got Gilbert and Cole Taylor in last year's class, you had him. Everybody in the country wanted Thomas Fadone, the kid from Iowa that committed to Nebraska last week. LSU was in on him. But I think that was a kid where, LSU just couldn't get him in for a visit due to COVID, and the kid was familiar with Nebraska, and it's right there in his backyard. So, but they really like Sheed. Coach Derek Shea, the GA tight ends coach at LSU, recruited him. So, LSU's getting towards that 20 number of commitments that about where they were this time last year. So COVID really hasn't changed that at all. So, it's now we just wait to see if we can get through these next several weeks, and if the governor decides to open things up. And as soon as he extended it 2 weeks the other day, you saw Neil Weiner and Gabe Fertitte and all the coaches on Twitter talking about, well, we can still get it done, and this is how. And
well, high school football is supposed to start October the 8th. That's the date that the LHSAA put out about a month ago. So, they're hopeful that, you're right, sometime in early September. And not to mention, LSU's hopeful because if the governor doesn't extend the order, or if he does extend the order and keeps you at phase 2 with all these limitations, then that means there's going to be no fans in the stands for LSU Mississippi State on on September 26th. So, and he's feeling that pressure. He knows how much fans, even just 25,000 fans, can be a boom to the economy for the restaurants and businesses and the taxation in Baton Rouge, not to mention the money that LSU wants and needs. So there's a lot of pressure on Governor Edwards to make sure LSU's playing home football games with fans.
Yeah, and look, that's one thing. But I tell you what, you start taking senior seasons away from high school kids that, 19 out of 20 of them, this is it for them. They'll never play football again. Probably 29 out of 30. You're going to have some angry parents hitting that switchboard.
We'll have a lot of 18-year-old seniors registering to vote.
Yeah, right. But that's always the thing with John Bell Edwards. He's not worried about it.
Right.
But he's still a young guy. Does he want to be a Louisiana senator one day? Does he want to come back and have multiple terms down the road? Who knows what he wants to do after? But we'll see what happens here. See, he's on. He could do a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I was on last night on ESPN Radio, a show on ESPN Radio, a weekly show called Hold the Rope that Dan Canterbury and Skip Burtman do, and it's actually moving to Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock on ESPN right after Jimmy Ott Show. And Skip Burtman, of course, former athletic director at LSU, he told me, he's like, hey, they still may not play football this year, talking about SEC football. I mean, and this is a guy who, obviously has some little bit of inside knowledge, but he also knows how just shaky the whole thing is, that, even with, we know how much it means to LSU, we know how much it means financially to the SEC and all the schools. That said, less than a month out, we still don't really know if it's going to happen. And if it's going to happen with fans, which is a big deal.
Yeah, it's what does a guy like Nick Saban think about all this? That everything we've been talking about, the scholarships, what's going to be the number, all the testing, fans, no fans, will there be games? Is there going to be delays? Contact tracing. Because this player was within a proximity of that one, he's got to be sitting out. You could see where a guy like him who's like, man, I'm about ready to just
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with this.
I mean, what is it, next 68, I
Yeah.
believe? He's getting inducted this year into the Louisiana Sports
And
Hall
like you
of
said,
Fame.
how much? It's not like in January we'll be through all this and we'll be back to normal.
Right.
The reverberation from this is going to last several years.
Well, the good news is that college football did get underway. High school football did get underway in other parts of the country. We watched it on ESPN
Central
all weekend
Arkansas.
long. Central Arkansas taking on Austin Peay, the Governors of Austin Peay.
I watched it. I loved it.
Both teams were co-champs of their conferences last year, so it was a good brand of football. Hudspeth, right? He was he the Austin?
He was.
He was the
He
Austin
was
Peay
until a few
coach
weeks ago. That's a
until a
story.
few weeks ago. Boy, she's good looking. But anyway,
It had something to do with him trying to still fit into some medium polo shirts. They just had enough of it. They ran him off.
I don't know. Hey, regardless of what people think of, good coach.
Yeah.
I mean, good coach. Did some good things at UL Lafayette. Led Austin Peay to a championship last year, first year, but now he's out. But Austin Peay winds up losing. Arkansas State, Central Arkansas comes from behind in the second half and wins the game. This game was played on neutral site in Montgomery, Alabama, so it wasn't a big crowd or anything like that. It was a special.
It had to have been like the highest betted FCS game in the history of Vegas, right?
100%. 100%. And I want to say Central Arkansas was a 5-point favorite, I believe.
Have we gotten a number from that? Like how many viewers ESPN got?
No,
from that?
I haven't. I'm curious. I'm also curious to see how many viewers they got from high school football. Because quite frankly, when I put on high school football and it's two teams from North Dakota, I keep it on for a couple minutes maybe, just to see, they're a lot smaller than we are here in Louisiana, or a lot less athletic or whatever. I know one of the teams was Carson Wentz's old high school. So, I mean, they talked about that but I gave it 5 minutes and changed the channel. I'm not really interested in watching a whole lot of high school football outside of the state of Louisiana. I'll give it a few minutes, but I'm curious to see how the ratings were because people are so starved for football in general.
Yeah, that number had to have been huge.
Yeah.
I was watching it.
But when we watched college football, there were some players that had masks on if they weren't playing, like, the third string quarterback that's signaling in from the sidelines. But the coaches didn't have masks. The players that had helmets on didn't have masks. Other than the fact that you saw a few masks over some backups, which you would kind of normally see during a cold game anyway, it didn't look weird. There weren't a lot of people in the stands and they were spread out, so that was different. But it was a neutral site game in August in Alabama, so you weren't going to have a big crowd anyway. But even these high school games, a lot of these high school games, they look like regular old high school games. Fans in the stands, bands playing. If you can, COVID doesn't know borders. If you can do that in Alabama, you should be able to do that in Louisiana,
Let me tell you
right?
something. I have been going around to high school practices in Louisiana for the last 3 weeks, and
No difference. They look the same.
I pulled up at a school last week, 2:30, where the buses were getting loaded. And it never fails. Everywhere I go, I get out of my vehicle, I'm halfway to the door or wherever I'm supposed to be, and I realize I don't have my mask, and I have to go back to my truck and get it.
Right.
Well, I get out, and I'm seeing all the students come out of school. Nobody's wearing masks. They're getting on school buses. Nobody's wearing masks.
Right.
I'm going to practice. Nobody's wearing masks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the Wild Wild West out there.
Well, it's the same way if you go to a restaurant or you go into a business. You have some places that they have the signage. They will get on you if you don't have a mask. And then there's others where, the waiter might have masks, but nobody else does, and nobody's really saying anything.
No, it's just like I went and had dinner at a place that you've done remotes at recently. Mm-hmm. It's like you walk in, you walk in with a mask on, but as soon as you sit down, you take it off. Mm-hmm. So that stretch of walk, you're safe.
10 feet.
and
it's weird.
Yeah,
it's a weird deal. And a friend of mine I saw was at a place the other day. They had a wedding, 200 people at a wedding, but yet you can't have an event at L'Auberge Casino that's officially over 50 people if you had a private event there, but you can go to another place down the street that has a wedding with 200 people in a much smaller room than you would in a ballroom.
All the bar owners
Right.
were circulating images from L'Auberge
Right.
when they were going furious. Because you could see the pictures, and they were using that in their case ripping John Bel Edwards, the lawsuits.
It's crazy. I mean, I was at a place in Baton Rouge nearby off Coursey Boulevard the other day that had live music outside, people drinking, bar inside. Yeah, they served a few pizzas, but like it was a bar. You know, I mean, it's crazy what's going on in our state, and it's the thing that's so frustrating is it's so different city to city, parish to parish, state to state. I mean, the rules are different, but yet COVID doesn't change. It's doing what it does, and fingers crossed that we have football on September the 26th. It's going to be weird to have Tom Brady and Drew Brees playing football on September the 13th in the New Orleans Superdome and not one fan. I mean, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That'll be one of the highest rated games of the weekend, if not the highest rated game of the weekend, and there's not going to be a single soul in there to see it.
You know how starved I was? Not only did I watch that Central Arkansas Austin Peay game Saturday night, yesterday I was actually listening to the radio broadcast of the scrimmage of the Bengals.
To hear about Joe Burrow.
What Burrow was doing.
And how did it go? What did they say?
Oh, he had a decent day. But, it's just like, boy, you just like, when would you ever, of course, Burrow's a different animal, but still, it's like, no, there would be, normally this is you would have a full slate of games, and I was going through I always have a running tally of all the high school games that I would go to and film, and I had to, go through it and erase everything, and it's like, waiting for the LHSA to put up the revised schedules for every team so I can map out a new routine.
Right.
And it's like, is that even, well, they're not going to put anything up right now because that's going to change.
It's a waste of time to even worry about it right now. It's going to change so much between now and October 8th. And I am of the belief, and, my opinion is this, that I think the SEC will play football in the fall. I don't know that they'll play 10 games. I think things are going to happen. I think you're going to have teams that are going to get hit with the rash of COVID. What that is, I don't know. Is a rash 5 players? Is a rash 12 players? You're going to have games stop, start, get delayed, and maybe at some point they just say, you know what, we got 8 in, we're good. Because at the end of the day, this is a money grab. Each of those schools in the SEC are trying to play as many games as they can because each time they get a TV check. And that's straight all this is about. It's not about national championships or anything else. It's about trying to get that money grab. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more Sports Shorts presented by LeBear's Casino. He's Mike Scarborough. Go to tigerbait.com. I'm Ronnie Ransom. You're watching Sports Shorts presented by LeBear's Casino.
If you're an avid sports fan, then you need to check out the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, located in historic downtown Natchitoches, next to the Chateau Saint Denis Hotel and the Natchitoches Convention Center. The Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame is where the rich history of Louisiana sports is told through the pictures, artifacts, and by the legends themselves in video archives. Come to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame and Northwest Louisiana History Museum and visit a world-renowned architectural marvel. For more information and to purchase tickets to the annual Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame events, visit lasportshall.com/purchase.
Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Shorts, presented by LeBear's Casino. He's Mike Scarborough. We've been talking a little bit about Jamar Chase today, Leonard Fournette, high school football. Is there going to be a season? Been talking about the upcoming college football season. It started this past Saturday, week 0. Central. If you had a ticket with Central Arkansas beating Austin Peay, then you were a winner. Well, actually, you weren't, because I think they were a 5-point favorite and they only won by 3. So I have to check that. By the way, a little baseball news on the show. Austin Nola got traded from the Seattle Mariners to the San Diego Padres. San Diego Padres, I mean, they're reminding people of 1984 when they made it to the World Series and lost to the Detroit Tigers and beat my Cubs along the way. But the Padres had 17 hits yesterday. They're hitting home runs left and right, trading for guys left and right. And
I have cousins that are in the Nola family, and they were all on Facebook just loving it because one of them said that he's finally at a real team. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, the Padres, it's like Padres are the only ones making a deal. The San Diego Padres also, earlier today acquired pitcher Mike Clevenger in a blockbuster deal with the Cleveland Indians. So they picked up an ace pitcher, the Padres do. Cleveland received right-hander Quantrill and outfielder Naylor and catcher Austin Hedges, along with 3 minor league prospects. But they pick up Mike Clevenger, who's a legitimate ace pitcher. So the Padres they're going for it. They're like, hey, we got a chance to win the World Series this year, and they're making it happen. Also, some news: the Oakland A's acquired left-hander Mike Minor from the Texas Rangers. They did that as a Mike Minor, the former Vandy left-handed pitcher, pitched for Vanderbilt. It's Major League Baseball, I think, has done a pretty good job of surviving the rash of COVID that it had. They've canceled some games, postponed some games. A lot of people thought 3 weeks ago that Major League Baseball wouldn't be here, but they're making their way through. And I mean, I'll watch it. It's a good brand of baseball, and I think they're going to get to the finish line.
Yep, and it looks like the NBA might make it. Took some intervention, and now we'll see, like we've been talking about the whole show, if the SEC gets on time and without any hiccups, and then if the Big Ten's able to pull off this Thanksgiving start that all their coaches and ADs are trying to push for behind the scenes. But that's a tricky situation. How do you start even a 6 or 8 game season, depending on which teams you would get to play in that environment in the winter in the North? I mean, you've got to have some neutral sites and some dome stadiums, and you've got to be very creative to try and pull that off. You can't play in Columbus and in Ann Arbor December and January games. How do you even do that?
We've got some news also. Notre Dame just came out and announced that they're going to play at 20% capacity. So we're expected that LSU is going to end up playing at 25% capacity this year. That's kind of the number that's been thrown around. We know the state of Mississippi, the governor's already come out and said all of their colleges will play at 25% capacity. So there's a big deal right there. Of course, Notre Dame. Also, Auburn has down 16 players for virus-related issues. And again, this is what I'm talking about, why I am of the belief they'll start the season but not finish it. If Auburn were playing this week and they had 16 cases of COVID, would they just next man up? And if that meant having a walk-on cornerback playing opposite a starter, so be it. I mean, that's the things that I don't know. Will there be some coaches that say, you know what, we got too much COVID, we're not going to play this week? Where you might have other coaches that say, you know what, I got bodies, we're going to play no matter what.
I think that's what you do. And I think, what SEC coaches would you say going into this season are your hot seat coaches? Muschamp? Who? I mean, who would you name?
I mean, people want to say Malzahn, but I don't believe. I think his number's too big, especially now with COVID and everything. They can't afford to buy him out.
All these guys get mulligans.
Yeah, everybody gets.
They all get mulligans.
Yeah.
So it's like, let it fly. If you need a walk-on or two to play, then you do it. You've got a built-in excuse.
I want to get your take on some basketball a little bit. We got a couple minutes left in the show. Last week, some more news came out about Will Wade and LSU basketball, where Will Wade is how he's handled it as far as delay, stall, change attorneys, it's looking like he's going to get 2 years of money. When I thought in March of 2019, March of 2019, he was done. That was when LSU suspended him indefinitely. I never thought we'd see him back as the LSU basketball coach. He wasn't cooperating with the school. That's when we really got word that, hey, there's these audio tapes that have him on it, these FBI wiretaps that have him on it, talking about Smart and recruitment and paying players. I thought that was it. We never see him again. Well, he stalled, he delayed, he got good advice, good attorneys, was able to get a whole another year out of it, another check. Unfortunately, they didn't make the NCAA tournament because of COVID, but they were headed to make the NCAA tournament. Now, we come out, there's another report that there's as many as 11 players that he offered money to, or special considerations to, whether it was their AAU coach, their uncle, whatever the case may be. But yet, still, it's looking like 6 to 12 more months before the NCAA really hands down any official letters of inquiry. He may get 2 years of pay.
I think that's a hit piece.
It's unbelievable.
I think that's a hit piece. Because if they had 11 players on the record, or they had proof of that, offers, the NCAA wouldn't be kicking it down to that board, that side, what do you call it, a justice of the peace,
right?
Or whatever, because they wouldn't need them. You're kicking it down to this so-called grand jury type.
But it
thing.
seems like the NCAA really doesn't want to get that involved, right? Because, I mean, with everything we've learned and heard and what's going on in Kansas and Arizona and all these alleged situations, I don't think the NCAA really wants to do much, right? I mean, that's why nothing's really happening.
I mean, Friday night, the cornerback, Nate Wiggins, was supposed to announce at 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock came, 8:30. I reach out to his coach, say, is he still doing it tonight? Says, yeah, he's working on a video right now. It's uploading. So I tweet out, LSU fans, it's coming. Well, that spread like wildfires, and the hate all weekend long. People thought it was meaning I was saying Will Wade was getting fired. And you had Tennessee fans, Arkansas fans, and I mean the hate that those fan bases have, their basketball fever guys in those markets have for Will Wade. And they just think that, how can he even have a job anymore? And we're down here saying, what do you mean?
Well, look, I think it's amazing he's got a job. I do think it's going to cost him his job at some point. I understand how the fans feel about it. Hey, we know everybody cheats. Who cares? He's our guy. We got a good team. Let bygones be bygones. Everybody's cheating. I mean, that's the perspective of Joe Fan, and I get that. And look, that might even be the perspective of athletic directors behind closed doors, but they can't do it. They just can't. Presidents and ADs have to support the NCAA, and they can't look the other way entirely. And if they get too much of a smoking gun, if they get that letter of inquiry, it's already set up for them to let Will Wade go. I think it's inevitable. It's going to happen. I hope it doesn't.
If the penalty is you have to lose tournament for a year and 2 scholarships, you keep them.
Sports Shorts presented by LeBear's Casino. Go to tigerbait.com. Have a great week, everybody.
If you're an avid sports fan, then you need to check out the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, located in historic downtown Natchitoches, next to the Chateau St. Denis Hotel and the Natchitoches Convention Center. The Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame is where the rich history of Louisiana sports is told through the pictures, artifacts, and by the legends themselves in video archives. Come to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame and Northwest Louisiana History Museum and visit a world-renowned architectural marvel. For more information and to purchase tickets to the annual Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame events, visit lasportshall.com/purchase.
Can't get enough sports shorts? Tune into Sports Shorts TV on Cox HD Channel 1013 Mondays at 8.